We've got a jam-packed show for you today. It's been a week of Shane playing NCAA 25. Does it really take 5 hours to slide into a recruit's DMs?
Shout out X.
The Giants are rumored to be looking to trade Mike Yastrzemski.
Him and who else?
Could the future look any more bleak? We're just a few short days away from the start of fall camp around college football. So let's take a look back at what an actual camp schedule looks like. Do you think you could do an 18-hour day, 7 days a week?
What about those OTAs?
Also, Brandon Aiyuk showed up at the 49ers practice yesterday, and then he ran into John Lynch. Finally, today is the opening ceremonies for the Olympics along the Sven. It's Friday, July 26th. Happy birthday, Mom. And it's time to go.
Balls out.
Tired of the sensationalized sports takes? Fed up with the same old rundown? Forget that. Welcome to Balls Out with Shane Wicks and Othni Escalante. We're peeling back the layers of the game to explore the untold stories, emerging trends, and influential personalities that are reshaping sports, bringing you bold, in-depth analysis with a splash of West Coast flair. It's time to shake things up. Let's go Balls Out.
A lot has transpired since we were last on a podcast. It's been over close to a month, right, since we did our last one. But we are back. We've got our light and our sound. We've got some brand new equipment that sounds good.
Took some ironing out of the kinks, but...
You know, can I say that we've done this twice since, and we learned another thing about audio and how to do it. So all in all, this is a growing learning experience for both of us, man. And it's good to see you. Did you look good? You look slick back. Well, what do you use in your hair? What'd you put in there? Looks good.
Some generic Old Spice.
I like it. I like it. You look good. You've been working out too, I can tell. Been
Well,
in the gym a little bit.
When you're not bringing in six figures, you better at least try and have a six-pack.
Oh, got you. Trade the six-figure for the six-pack or substitute it. I like it. I like it. We dove in a little bit, well, I did, into NCAA 25, which there's a couple observations I have. Okay, number one, the stadiums are about as lifelike as they're ever going to be until they're on TV, right? I mean, you're watching it on TV, you're watching a video game.
Although there was a caveat that I'll bring up later. There's a bug in the system.
Oh, okay, let's talk about that. Well, the things for me, I went and played at Stanford, I went and played at Arizona, and I went and played at Notre Dame, 3 stadiums that I'm very familiar with. And even the marigolds at Notre Dame are as bright as they are in person. It's crazy. And the cool thing that we're going to see this upcoming football season, which it was crazy to see a Big 12 logo at Arizona Stadium and an ACC logo, on the field at Stanford. That's coming. And we had our, actually the ACC will be out at Stanford this week for their big ACC preview. And they're super excited to be on the West Coast. No ACC media comes out here pre-season, right, during the game, or before the games start, ever, or for any reason. When has an ACC team been out here, or media team been out here to talk to Stanford? It's cool, it's interesting, it's new. You know, I think Stanford only really has 3 games. I think they're going to San Jose State, Syracuse, and I can't remember the other one, but yeah. So they're not traveling that far, but it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of good teams coming through here that we've never seen before. So I'm excited about that.
Clemson, they got to go to Clemson.
That's right. Clemson, San Jose State, and Syracuse. So, Syracuse is easy trip. I think they'll come back after the game. So nothing changes really.
All of those, they'll come back after the game.
There's one where they're the Thursday night game. I think the first game of the season is Thursday night. They're leaving on Tuesday or Wednesday. They're getting one extra day for that, but then Saturday is a dead day. So it works out. Having said all that, the NCAA 25 game is just, I can't say enough. And then actually playing with you, a coach, former player, and to have you talk about the things that you see in terms of the offensive lineman technique. I started watching that, and you say it's lifelike. I see the guys do it, in practice or whatever, in games, but I don't pay attention the way you do. You see it from a whole different perspective, right? Mine's is perception, yours is perspective, maybe. But yeah, I mean, talk to me about that. What did you see there that made you comment? This is really realistic.
Well, I think until quite recently, the offensive line as a position hasn't really been cataloged to such a capacity that it's really correctly taught. So, I mentioned the other day, like, there's just so much about offensive line play that are really, like, strange, unique movements, really unique to the position. You look beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. Got to check it.
So like the video game, none of the football video games up to this point have done any kind of justice to the offensive line position in terms of like just how athletic those guys are. Like they always look like the box stick figures, with their little hamburger helper hand shuffle.
Hey, I come from the days of Tecmo Bowl in television football and the early Maddens. And Tecmo Bowl was basically like you're playing. Now it looks like you're playing Space Invaders on like the original Atari. I mean,
Right.
It's so primitive, right?
So, yeah, just so like, I thought I mentioned also that like if you're a young football player, particularly like a young offensive lineman, you could never go to a video game to like learn anything other than scheme because it just didn't at all illustrate what, good offensive line play actually looks like from a run blocking or a pass blocking perspective. They really got that down. Like when you watch any of rather they're in like a zone blocking scheme or a gap blocking scheme, or they're pass protecting, all the different kinds of pass protection, rather their sprint out game or, just your traditional quick pass or standard pocket, whatever it is. Like they nailed it. So
Yeah, and
cool to
then
watch that.
you actually there's different modes, right? You have a coach. What are the different modes? I know the one's dynasty mode that you're in. I want to get into that a little bit. What you remember what the different modes are?
Yeah, so like there's the coaching dynasty, and then there's like the road to the college football playoff or something. There's a bunch of different modes, right? But like the premise of the coaching dynasty one is that you yourself are like, you can pick between where you want to start out, like as a coordinator, offensive or defensive, or as a head coach.
And you're currently, last time I saw you on there, you were playing Boise State.
So I finished my season
Undefeated? Bowl game?
Well, so I failed to remember that it's now a 12-team college football playoff. And so
Right.
I was freaking out the whole time as like the
Not being
only
ranked. Yeah.
14-0 team outside the top 10. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, I'm going to get snubbed even in the video game. And then it played through
That's going to be fun, man. I can't wait. A 12-team playoff. How does that even work? I mean, are we going to be seeing just a bunch of bowl games? I'm just super excited.
I'm thinking that the 1 and 2 seeds got to get a bye, right? Otherwise, you have a math problem.
You got me, but yes, it makes sense.
So those two teams got to get a bye at some point. And it would make sense that it would be in the first round. But yeah, this is going to be, we picked a hell of a year, to start a football podcast. Because
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to be where we're going to have access to this year, fields and press boxes and practices, hopefully. By the way, remind me to remind you about a practice that we can attend coming up here shortly. But yeah, it's going to be cool. Like I said, having the ACC teams come out here, and there's huge games, in October that used to only be reserved for, the holiday season, the bowl season, and they're going to be fantastic. And teams traveling across country, big names, especially that Big Ten. It's got everybody in it now. And the Big 12 looks pretty solid to me. Add those four corner teams into that conference, and we're heading towards maybe just two conferences, AFC, NFC, and like 4 divisions, right? East, West, North, South, whatever. It's going to be good, 100%. So sliding into their DMs, the recruiting board, you and I, but you commented much more expertly. I've seen those recruiting boards in those recruiting rooms, and I know those conversations, and the grease board with the different colored dry erase markers. That video game makes that process look antiquated.
Yeah, it does.
Right? Dinosaur.
For sure. And yeah, like I said, I wish our user interface was so advanced, right? But does it take 5 hours of time to slide, just send a DM to anybody? No, obviously.
Right.
But the game, in its own system and in its own way for how it allocates kind of points and things of that nature, it does a good job of kind of marshaling resources to get recruits.
And it's pretty realistic in terms of the time that you have to work on this, right? What is it? You're capped at a certain hour amount, or it logs your hours. I know, but how does that?
So, yes, you have to spend the points to get the recruits, right? So it's a very, in the video game, obviously very transactional system. In real life, there used to be, and I haven't seen what the new, if there is a new recruiting calendar and what it says, although I will tell you, for those highly competitive universities, they're not paying attention to those calendars. They're getting around them, right?
Oh, 100%.
I mean, just like there was Bagman at every university who competed for a national championship from 2000.
Shout out the U.
Right? I was going to say. So
it's all about the U.
Right.
The U of
it does a good job, of kind of attributing all the many factors that go into a university's prestige and academics and other things. Although, most, like we said, right? Guys aren't going to these universities for the education. They're going to play football.
No, they're going there to be students,
right.
Bro.
Right.
What? I think that maybe in a way it's a little bit of it exposes, right, some of the areas where, I don't know. I mean, okay, the research team for this game is absolutely brilliant, right? I mean, is there even a word for them? I mean, they're down to each player's stats, right? I mean, and there are how many players in this game?
Well, I don't know what they're like in terms of the recruits in the game. I don't know if I can't imagine that those are real individuals, right? Because but those are, you'd have minors, you'd have all kinds of issues.
Sure.
Right? So,
but I mean it's modeled after something real, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Modeled after something very real.
And making it real inside the world of that game, right?
Yeah. And you get together a couple of people who've been in those environments, along with a great team of computer programmers, and you're going to get some wild stuff.
In fact, Barry Sanders Jr., for a long time was working at EA. He obviously played down the street, and he got a job at EA, and he made his way up the ranks pretty significantly. I'm not sure if he's there anymore, but shout out Barry Sanders Jr. and Barry Sanders Sr.
Yeah. Dude, if you're going to go and you want to work in tech or business
go to
writ
Stanford,
large,
play football at Stanford.
No, but I'm saying, like, people don't realize in the sports world, like,
Oh, yeah.
where do they get, the accuracy of these things from? And it's like they go get Barry Sanders Jr. out of the Stanford football program for a summer internship and have him,
And hire him.
right. That's how.
'Cause he's Barry Sanders Jr. Good kid, by the way. Great kid.
So, yes, the game itself, like I said, it's like when you exclude the human factor from it, incredibly lifelike. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, because it's a world of its own, right? It's almost artificial intelligence in a way, right? I mean, you can dive in there and create. I mean, you played a whole season, the actual season in stadiums, right? I mean, is there anything more artificially intelligent than that?
Jason's probably done that.
Man.
Glad that I'm done with my.
Well, I got to tell you,
work.
I sat through like 3 games, and I was fascinated for about 3 quarters. I mean, a quarter a game. But yeah, it's fun to watch a coach. I've always wanted to sit down with a coach and talk about what we're watching in a game. I mean, I've been in a press box, whatever, but I've always wanted to be in a coach's press box, which I think would be awesome because I'd love to hear what goes on in those headsets.
It's honestly a lot more quiet of a place than you would think.
Oh no, I believe that, but not in the headsets, right?
No, I'm serious. Like, you're getting play calls, and in between series, and so like there's information going out, right? Like personnel, but like largely quiet over the airwaves.
Speaking of largely quiet, the Giants lost last night again to the Dodgers.
Ironic.
Shohei went yard.
Not before Nick Ahmed though.
I missed that one. What did Nick Ahmed do?
Went yard.
Last night?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Giants...
Only wearing a Dodgers uniform now.
Right. Yeah, well, Nick Ahmed, or whatever we're going to call him. And I think they lost. Did they play
Batting
3?
ninth.
Did they play 3 or 2? I don't remember. It was a weird kind of
3.
odds here. They played a day game yesterday.
They did manage to escape with one of them.
They did get one. Yeah, that was good. And they actually scored like 8 runs in that game, right?
Yeah. It was a kind of a pitching meltdown for the Dodgers,
But now we're talking trades, and there's some significant names on the trading block.
well, the reason it made it into our headlines this morning is I really didn't want to believe it. I was like, say it ain't so, but rumor has it the Yankees are on the hunt. The Yankees are on the hunt for some insurance in their DH spot, and rumor has it that the Giants might be willing.
Well, they should be willing because at this point, I mean, they're 49 and 55, bro, and this is what Farhan's, what is he in his 5th year now? And I get it, man. I get it. Prospects, I get it. You hang on to them. I get it. There's some of them come up. But Kyle Harrison is starting tonight against the Rockies. They're like a minus 170, which means they should win, right? But we'll see. Kyle Harrison's been good, but not consistent. And, I think Doval could probably be traded. Conforto could probably be traded. Chapman could probably be traded.
Though? Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. But until you start spending money like the Dodgers, you don't have an answer.
Well, we can spend money like the Dodgers. We just don't. Although, Robbie Ray had a good outing the other day. I mean, we've got some talent on this team, but Soler's a bust, man. Trade that guy. I don't understand what good he's offering the team, but
here's my thing though, is that I think to a capacity, the Giants fans, we got really lucky in the early 2010s when they went on that run with Bruce Bochy. We got lucky to have Bruce Bochy, right? Like,
takes a little luck, absolutely, 100%.
And we also had some great lineups in there for sure, and I think a lot more talented probably than they were given credit for at the time.
Well, I mean, Tim Lincecum was a stud, dude. I mean, Bumgarner was a stud. I mean, that Castilla, Romo, Posey, you know, I mean, the Panda.
Well,
luck, yes, but they had a lot of talent.
Well, yeah, when you consider Bumgarner's appearance against the Royals was maybe
in relief
the greatest
one of the
pitching performance in World Series history.
Yeah, and what a stud!
Right, like not just like one outing, but over the course of the series, the most dominant performance a pitcher has had in the history of baseball in those 7 games.
100%.
Or you know, the impact that he had on those 7 games. Or however many games.
Shout out Mad Bum, bro.
Because that did go to a Game 7, didn't it?
Yeah. I believe that was a Game 7. Either
Panda
6 or 7, I don't remember.
Caught that ball in foul territory.
Oh, the actual, yeah. Oh, yeah,
baseline.
and then threw his arms in the air. What a scene.
So, ever since then, the Giants fans have been sort of held in, you know, suspense waiting for the next big thing, right? And we sort of saw that era last probably a little bit longer than it should in some of those contracts. Still weird as hell to see Crawford wearing a
Oh, man. And you know what, dude?
Jersey. And great for him.
10, 12, and 14. Was that what it was? 10, 12, and 14. That's a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you get older.
I was in high school, bro.
When you get older, time seems to go faster, but conceptually, like, so I think about, well, that was not that long ago when the Giants won that, but it was a long, what is it, 15, 14, 10 years, 11 years?
10
That's
years
a long
since
time.
the most recent, right?
That's a long time.
That's
That's
a long time.
That's a long time.
And since then, the Giants fans have been begging for like the next big thing to be excited about, and it's come and it's gone, and I think that Gabe Kapler did a great job with the teams that he had.
It. What? He had one good season, bro.
Okay,
106 games.
If you win that many games, baseball games in a year,
that had nothing to do with him. That guy, I'm sorry, I just good riddance. That's just me.
Okay.
He had to go.
Okay.
That guy's weird, bro. Did you Instagram? Like,
no.
He just
because I
taking pictures of himself
in
the off season. The dude's like traveling in a van and posting videos. It just, the dude is odd.
You know who else is odd and travels in a van?
Who? Me?
Maddox, the Cubs manager.
Oh, I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
From fucking Tampa all the way up to Chi-Town. And he is also a weird motherfucker. So don't talk to me about this like savant, you know,
yeah, exactly.
kind of baseball knowledge. Like, he was gorgeous to look at. And he won.
Oh, Gabe Kapler.
Yeah,
of course. But that's all he has going for him.
Well, for me, that's a lot, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Especially when I'm purely a spectator at this point.
Right on. But for a baseball fan who's invested, we were glad to see him go, right? We were glad to see him go. You know what? That 106 season.
Here's the deal,
great.
though. And perhaps this has come from lived experience of, like, having an opinion of a coach, right, that I didn't know personally, and then getting to know various coaches who had major national level profiles of a certain image, right, who are very different in private. So I really try to reserve judgment on an individual, and, you know, like, yeah, we can talk about performance all day long because that's pretty objective. But in terms of, like, being like, whoa, that guy's a fucking weirdo and a creep, right? Like, I mean, we're going to get back to Brandon Aiyuk again today. And I've talked about how much I'm not a fan of his behavior, but I still, you know, wish the kid well. And I try to do my best to, like, disparage the behavior and not the man, right? So, I don't know Gabe Kapler from fucking anybody. And I've seen a lot of weird Instagrams out there, right? And like I've seen people into a lot of really quirky kind of shit. Obviously, when you got to live in the Castro for a year, like, so
Amen.
reserve judgment to the best of
Shout
my
out
ability.
Hot Cookie. You know what? Fine. Yeah, you take the high road. That's fine. By all accounts, this guy was he was the same guy that he was in the media, in the locker room. I mean, there was no trust there. By accounts, I was not there. I listened to the radio. He was truculent with the media. He was kind of a smart ass. He, his outfit. I mean, this guy was about Gabe Kapler. And I don't know the guy, but I know that he was not a good manager for the San Francisco Giants.
That's probably fair. And I'll say this. Like, if you look that pretty and you're like that muscled up, your
focus is somewhere else, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You show up with hand tattoos like 15 games into the season. This is the guy who was asked about when he was coaching. Where was he before? They asked him if the guy had warmed up. Yeah, he's like, the guy had warmed up prior. He threw out a reliever out there who hadn't thrown a single pitch to warm up, and they asked him, what's up with he warmed up prior. What does prior mean? Like prior to last February? Like, I don't understand. There was just a lot of shortcomings. As a man, I don't know him. As a manager, he was not good for our team. He had a brilliant first season, but after that, it was literally a disaster at every turn. Bad calls, pulling pitchers out when he was supposed to. The dude's about to get fired, and he's out there, their worst season ever, and he's out there on the mound joking around during an actual game while he's pulling a pitch. There was just so much. Not bagging on the guy. I'm just glad that he's gone. I'm glad that he's gone.
Not bagging on the guy. I mean,
and
bagging on the guy.
Well, let's call out Bo Mel, right, too. Like, Bob Melvin, come on, dude. You wanted this job. You're from Atherton. You said it's your dream job. What have you done? I mean, all props to him. I love the dude, but this team is not the team that is going to win ball games. Whether it's Farhan, whether it's Bomel, something has to happen with the Giants.
Well, yeah.
They've
got to write a $700 million contract
and
to a superstar, and then they'll be on a start.
For some reason, they try, and they just can't. I mean, Shohei could have very well been paid what he...
It really is fascinating to me because, like, and here's why I'm slowly becoming a Dodger fan.
Oh, God.
Right?
Podcast over.
Why is it that the Giants aren't able to, land anyone, it seems, in these deals? You have to look at the ownership group, right?
Because 100%.
You can talk all you want about Farhan. You can talk all you want about, like, they've had some fabulous managers. And I'm not saying that Kapler
shout out Bruce Bochy.
Right. That's to whom I refer.
Shout out Hum Baby.
But even now it's been a very long time. But Dusty Baker, right? Like, love Dusty. They've had some of the cream of the crop when it comes to managers.
Hall of Famer Dusty Baker.
And they've always kind of had a struggling public image, right? Like, since Bonds,
right?
It has been just kind of one shit show after the next for them. Spare,
10, 12, 14.
Right. Some lucky years. And more than luck, obviously. Like sure. I said, Bochy, fabulous manager. It's until they're willing to spend the money. And again, apparently it's not even a money thing. I think you got to look at the ownership group. And when we look at the ownership group, it's not hard to realize why somebody would say, like, I would rather have my boss be Magic Johnson and his group of owners than these fucking guys, right? Like, that's not a hard calculus for me. If anybody were writing me checks today, I'm going down to LA.
Speaking of money, Why is Brandon Aiyuk being such a punk?
Ooh, you're taking a bit of a different tack there, Oni.
I know he's a punk, but
No, but talk to me because
I know he's a punk because of what you've told me, right? I have to trust you because you knew the kid
I
when
won't
he was
say
a
that
kid.
he's a punk because, again, like, condemn the actions, not the man. Like, he has a tendency to act very immature.
His actions are punk-ish.
Yes, he has a tendency to act very immature.
But again, my perspective was different than yours, right? To me, he was kind of a non-entity who just showed up and did his work, took his job pretty seriously. I don't know if he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, but he and Brock Purdy sure are a dynamic combination.
Carry on, sorry.
Well, I mean, that's it. Like, so, I said before that and in fact, they were asked about this the other day, John Lynch and Kyle. This happens every summer, and Kyle had a really brilliant answer. He ate up this reporter and just told him, I don't remember that. I don't recall that conversation. But it happens every season. So again, I'm still of the mind that Brandon Aiyuk will be a 49er starting. We open against the Jets, I think, Thursday night game. That's my prediction.
Okay.
And I'm still holding to it.
Okay. So, the reason that I think that that's not the case is there seems to be a fair bit of distance between B and the 49ers on this, right? On what they think.
Between what?
Between Brandon and the 49ers.
Oh, B, yeah. BA, as they call him over there.
So.
Bad attitude.
That's funny. For whatever reason, and maybe not for whatever reason, like for the reasons that we've seen posted on his own social media, I thought the video of him showing up at practice yesterday was pretty telling, right? That John was on him quick, right? And
the cameras were out there,
but like that's pretty notable, right? For it to be like
100%.
You're not supposed to be here right now, right?
But we got to see it, right?
Well, so of course, right? And like Brandon knew that there would be cameras out there.
You don't think
obviously,
that.
Right? As he's given the little whatever signal that is for as he's walking off the field, right? Like he knows there's cameras there, right?
100.
Every square inch of that place, even if he would have driven into the parking lot and walked in some back door, they'd have had his car flagged and they would have had images of his car pulling in and out of the
there's
driveway.
no back door at that stadium. You park where you park and you can see coming in. You're right there. Like there's no
everybody's
freaking
pretty
back door.
centrally located. That's true. But my point is there's really no hiding, right?
Yeah, 100.
He wasn't trying to. It's on brand for him to kind of make a scene.
Well, and that's the thing, right? From your perspective, you knew him as a high schooler,
right?
Correct?
Yeah.
What was he like? Do you know what he was like in the classroom?
So I was not a teacher. But obviously worked with him from his sophomore year to I was not his receivers coach, right? Like I was offensive
You were on a
coach.
staff where he was a player.
Correct.
So you were his coach.
Right.
Let's leave it at that.
I still see that sweet young kid, right?
Yeah,
So like
I've
I will
seen that.
always see that sweet young kid. As he started to get older, the only thing that I can say from like a school perspective was that he struggled to maintain
I was
the
going
minimums.
to say, was he ever ineligible?
So I don't know. I can't recall per se if he was ever ineligible at any point during the season, but I can tell you again, the reason he wasn't going to a Division I school out of McQueen was because he didn't have the grades. He was academically ineligible. He didn't make the NCAA clearinghouse. That is why he went to a junior college.
And then transferred to ASU, Mustard and Rust. You know what? Shout out my boy Heath Bray, number 14, who passed away last year. Wildcat legend in the prime of his life, 51 year old than me, 54 years old, heart attack gone. Heath Bray, R.I.P.
Damn.
And his family, Arizona legend. But Mustard and Rust, right? That's what we call ASU. And he went there, and for me, it's perfect because ASU is a bunch of pricks, you know? Like, I don't know how many people know this story, but Steve Kerr, our Steve Kerr, father was assassinated by the PLO in like the late 80s, right? He was an international diplomat. He was somewhere.
Right.
I can't remember where the embassy got blown up.
Right.
And Steve Kerr's father died that night. So Lute Olson, shout out Lute Olson, gave Steve Kerr the choice. Do you want to play tonight? You don't have to play tonight. Steve Kerr said, no, I'm going to play. And we were actually playing, I said University of Arizona, we're playing ASU that night at ASU. This is for me unforgivable, right? I always hated ASU because they were the rival, but now this one just puts it over the top. The fans at ASU that night, when Steve Kerr had the ball, chanted PLO, PLO. I mean, that's just disgusting. I don't want to be on my moral high ground, but in it,
Yeah.
so Steve Kerr proceeds to drop like 19 3-pointers that night, dude.
Good, fuck
just
him.
ice in his veins, and it was a big. Double guns.
Steve Kerr is the ultimate badass.
Steve
man.
Kerr, come on, man. Let's shout out Steve Kerr, all-time Wildcat. Bear down. But so with BA, you know, I think cameras rolling, you know, being ineligible in high school, you know. Isn't this kind of par for the course with a lot of athletes? I mean, we were having this conversation earlier. When you're great, you kind of get a pass. You don't kind of get a pass. You get a pass when you're great.
You do, for sure, right? But like, there's a breaking point for everyone.
And what's his?
I don't know, right? But like, what I'm saying is that yes, you get a pass up to a point, right? But if here's why I think the 49ers are struggling, because they've had a very hard time getting Brandon on the same page with them. And I can assume that their fear is the moment they write him a big check, he has lost all incentive or near all incentive, depending on how much of that money is guaranteed, right? And you can imagine he's trying to get as much guaranteed as possible, like would any sane person,
Amen.
right? That's a smart business decision, right, on his end. But you can also imagine why the 49ers are sitting here going, gosh, you know, like, yes, he's an undeniable talent, but like if he won't work for us, it won't work. And that's a waste of money.
You know, I work closely with the NFL Alumni Association, and I know one cat who I don't want to put his name out there, but played 10 years in the NFL. And that's really, I think he's the longest tenured. Yeah, I think he's the longest tenured player in the NFL. And he got a pension from the 80s, 90s, right? And the pension ain't shit. You know, he played 10 years. I mean, 10 years in the NFL for 3 different organizations in the 90s, and the pension ain't shit. And for now these guys that are getting millions and millions of dollars, but they see these other players getting even more, like what they're getting ain't shit to them, even though it's more money than they'll be able to spend in a lifetime. I don't know. I'm not sure.
So, and I listen, if I'm Brandon himself, I am trying to demand top dollar because I see myself, and, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, I see him also as one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. You know, maybe I'm kind of biased because
of course.
I like coach the kid and I want to see him really do well and succeed. But I think the times when, you know, he's been locked in with the 49ers, like you see, like I said, when he's got the football, man, it's entertainment.
First round draft pick, no doubt. 75 receptions, 7 TDs for 1,300 yards.
I mean, yeah, the stats
averaging
How many
17.9.
touchdowns last year?
I don't know if this is at 7. Yeah, seven touchdowns. Yeah.
And, and I think it's how many touchdowns a year before? Does it have?
No, I'm not. I
Okay.
Get that far. Give me a break, man.
I know. You're the stats guy,
I'm on
man.
a-
Why do you think I pay you so much fucking money?
When? I'm still waiting for the check, bro.
talking about, Upper?
Whoa! We got back to the platform. This is a sports podcast from the lens of a former gay football player and coach.
And current coach, actually, now. We're back in it, baby.
Am I allowed to say the high school?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Shout out Harbor High School.
Yeah.
The Latino
The Pirates.
linebacker
Arg.
manufacturers of the West Coast.
Yeah, baby.
All the way, man. Division 7 champions for sure.
Pete Hansen, I hope I do you proud, man.
What up, Pete?
And if not, just deny.
Hey, Pete. Bear down, brother. And Skull Vikes. Love that guy. Love that guy. Speaking of, shout out Dwayne Aquina, our guy over there at the University of Arizona. He's back.
Dude. Not a
shout
secondary
out,
coach in the
shout
country
out
better than
Brett. Oh, one of the top. He's the defensive coordinator.
I know.
Yeah. Shout out Brett Brennan. Shout out Colin Carroll.
It
We
was,
got people
I'll tell you
down
what, watching Dwayne Aquina and Pete Hansen go back and forth every week, designing coverages.
in the meeting rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So much fun, dude. So interesting.
Aquina's brain is like an algorithm.
He's just, you talk about somebody who's just like a really knowledgeable, great coach, but then who's also seen up close and personal the last 30 plus years of college football from the best programs, Texas, Alabama, Stanford during
Arizona
their prime.
during the Desert Storm years.
So,
in fact,
holy
he was
cow.
Heath Bray's coach, who I shouted out earlier. Yeah.
So he obviously he knows his shit. And I think, like I said, I've never met a harder working individual in any profession anywhere, but Pete Hansen, just like the man's like the Terminator when it
Dude
comes
played
to
basketball at Arizona and football just to block kicks. Just to block kicks. I don't know if he did anything else there.
Here's what I learned. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned from a football coach was Chris Peterson at Boise State. And
shout out UW.
It was like, if you're trying to be successful somewhere, make yourself indispensable to that organization.
Never let them forget your name.
Right. And just like whatever needs doing, make yourself the guy to do it.
Although that doesn't always work.
It doesn't.
Me.
Hey, but like.
But you know what? You do it for the love, man. You do it for the love. And you know what? To be fair, this foray into sports and my semi career as working in athletics, it's opened a lot of doors. I met a ton of people. I mean, I'm grateful for the people who I've met who've become friends, who've helped me in times of need, and knowing those people who've achieved that greatness, who are still human at heart. Speaking of the Brandon Aiyuks of the world, I don't know what kind of human he is inside, but there are a lot of good people in sport, man. And we paint it at this. We tend to paint it as this machine that eats people up and gobbles them and spits them out. But
it is kind of, though.
It is that,
right? Like, it's a super impersonal profession and business, and then when you layer on top of the fact that you're now a celebrity in the United States, which I have to tell you, like, is maybe one of the biggest curses God could ever give a human being. You got to deal with that 24/7. You got to deal with guys like us, right? Like your old high school football coach and every Tom, Dick, and Sally with a podcast who are telling, who are talking ad nauseum because your name is a brand. It gets clicks, right? Like
100.
So, and I would say that most of, the time, I hope that, guys aren't reading the comment section or whatever, don't spend that much time on Twitter. Here's been my point with Brandon this kind of entire time with Purdy and in the Shanahan system, right? Is that Shanahan is really like a system guy.
Genius.
Well, yes, a genius, right? Very smart. I think when all is said and done, will probably surpass his father.
Man, he's got too many Rose Bowl losses right now. I mean, not Rose Bowl, Super Bowl losses right now.
Well, but eventually you're going to get some wins in there.
It's hard to get there, man.
How many does Papa have?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Well, two with the Broncos.
I don't want to
two.
be talking completely out of my ass.
Well, with the Broncos, too, for sure. And then where was he before that?
After, I thought he was before.
Mike Shanahan. During his 14th season with the Broncos.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Okay. So he led them to 2 consecutive Super Bowls, 32 and 33. Yeah. So he's got 2.
He's got 2. Okay.
So Kyle's got to get there at least 2 more times.
He's got to win
catch
out
up to his dad and
Right.
still have a worse loss record, right?
But so he's a system guy, meaning it doesn't necessarily, I think, matter how talented you are. Like if you're not willing to run the routes, to be as vigorous of a blocking receiver as
Amen,
you are a route running and catching receiver.
Amen, brother.
That it's not going to work for him and it's not going to work for you, right?
And
now, I will say I was really impressed with Brandon's blocking
all of them
recently, right? Like
downfield.
it's a physical dude up in your grill and with tremendous effort, right?
At least he's not wiping his crotch on your face mask, though.
Oh, you want to go with the Mark Schlereth story?
Hold on, but let's come back to that. Yeah. So but okay. So yes, Kyle, system guy, which maybe lends itself to that narrative. There's that word again. That Brock Purdy is only good because he plays in that system, and there's something to that. But have you seen Brock Purdy's legs? They call him Baby Bosa. This guy's legs.
Oh, he's got an ass on him.
I don't know about the ass, but his quads look out of this. They're not human.
Really?
It's unbelievable. His nickname on the team, Baby Bosa. And if you ever seen Bosa's legs, they look like that stool right there, dude. Like just like weird muscles. He's like a sack of potatoes. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Hey, Brock Purdy will, to me, always. That's my guy. Win or lose, I love what he stands for. I love that he's humble. We don't see that. Compare him and Brandon Aiyuk, right? 2 dudes cut from completely different claws on the same team with the same goal. And they're simpatico together, right? So it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. Sure, you're playing football, but how you carry yourself is of the utmost importance, right? It's because who would you get rid of first, Purdy or Aiyuk? If you had to, I'd keep Purdy because he's a locker room guy. He's a culture guy, right?
Listen,
Brandon Aiyuk could be a poison.
That is, fortunately, John Lynch gets paid a lot of money to think really long and hard about that.
Shout out Stanford grad.
Right. So I don't know. My hope would be that you could keep them both, right?
Of course,
obviously,
100, and that's my prediction. Still,
that's
right?
everybody's hope.
No.
I don't know the answer to that question. All I'll say is this: my experience has taught me, it's system guys and system teams and system people that are successful, right? That win championships. And
hey, man, the Rose Bowl teams, excuse me, the Rose Bowl teams at Stanford from 12, 13, and 15, those are families. They were, man, and we talked about that a little bit, right? And the family is a system, right? A family is a system of taking care of each other, having each other's back, and the coach preached it, man, and he lived it. And we've talked about that before, but yes, I see what you're saying. Those teams were winners, man. They were winners, and they were blowing people up.
It's more true in some places and times than it is at others, but for those guys and for that staff, like it's now nearly a decade on from their most recent big time championship. And many of those guys and, families are still together, just in different places now. But that's kind of the curse of success within college football, right? Is nearly the moment that you are successful, you're going to lose a good part of your family. And if you're a good coach and a good mentor and a good friend, you want to lose them because that means that they're going on to take their own jobs, right? You're growing your own kind of coaching tree. Not that that's per se what you absolutely want to be doing. Every year, it seemed like Nick Saban was proliferating his coaching tree.
On the flip side of that, too, you reach a point where so much success. Okay, Bill Belichick, right? Why wasn't that guy able to get a job? Is it because he was just too successful and he's done everything he could? Is it because he was a complete jerk? I mean, what is it? Why is Bill Belichick not coaching? Is he not one of the greatest ever? And if it were your organization, wouldn't you at least even want him as a consultant? In like Denver Broncos hired somebody in your system. He's not getting hired. So do you reach a point where your success? I don't know.
I think listen, I don't know.
Hard question, I know.
I don't know my ass from a hole in the ground with the NFL for the most part, right? Like all of these big time, it's such a small world, right? Like Belichick knows all of those owners personally and individually, I would imagine.
And they know him.
And they know him, right? So, dude, I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. It would be hard for me to imagine that if he wants to coach again, that he's not going to. All the same, maybe it's a good lesson that your reputation precedes you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that and one thing that always struck me about Belichick was his real emphasis on, and every coach does this, some do it more successful than others, but keeping the media circus out of the locker room.
At bay, yeah.
Yeah, or at bay the best you can.
Man, I remember those USC teams of Pete Carroll's. The practices were a free-for-all, dude. From Snoop Dogg to every reporter in LA to national reporters. It was a circus, and they were celebrities, man. Yeah, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendale. I mean, those guys, that was a team. I saw them play Fresno State one time, that play where it was at USC. I can't remember the year, but Reggie Bush cut from one sideline almost horizontally to the other sideline and scored a touchdown. That I was there, man. I remember seeing that thinking, this is magic, and now I hate USC, so it doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, I get all that, man. And I think that at some point, and maybe for Belichick, it's just maybe he was offered a job. Who knows? Maybe he just needs time off. I mean, a football coach's life, swallows you, right? I mean, it's hours, and especially if you're going to be successful. So
I would have to imagine, though, that you actually maybe get a little more time off as an NFL coach than you do a college coach.
Because of the recruiting season, yeah, 100%.
Right.
But that season and preparing for this season has got to be grueling.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, for sure. I would imagine.
Speaking of grueling, you know who turns 81 today? Or I'm sorry, I don't know how old he is, but you know whose birthday it is today? Mick mother freaking Jagger, bro.
Oh,
That dude's 81, and he's still rocking out. So shout out Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. Favorite Rolling Stones song? Do you have one? I do. And that'll be the song of the day. It's called Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones. I wish we could play it right now. But we can't, but we will one day.
we can afford the copyright licenses.
Oh, yeah, there's that. But we're not making money on it. It's okay if you're not making money on it, I think.
Not yet.
Not yet. Shane, what do you have on tap for the rest of your afternoon, my friend?
What is on tap? Well, I mean, I imagine that the Olympic ceremony got recorded somewhere.
Was Snoop carrying the flag?
He was carrying the torch.
Snoop Doggy Dogg,
Was carrying the torch.
Calvin Brodus carried the Olympic torch. That is, if that's not an American dream story, if that's not a picture of America, this guy was on trial
grandfathered in.
This guy was on trial for murder. Somebody named Ralph Waldemarian was murdered in a park somewhere near Long Beach, and he was there, and he had the gun, and now he was exonerated, and now he's carrying the freaking torch. Come on, man. When Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg are our national heroes, we're doing all right, I think.
And Martha's done the most jail time.
Martha, she was on one of those comedy roasts on on Comedy Central, and they were all there.
That was the joke.
That was the line, right?
That was what's her name's joke.
What's her name?
God, she's so funny.
Oh, she's in all the not Paula Poundstone. No. Sarah Silverman. Was it Sarah Silverman?
No, it wasn't Sarah Silverman. It was.
Oh, the tall blonde girl.
No, she's brunette. She's gorgeous.
Oh, my girlfriend, you mean? Which one?
Well.
Anyway.
Also, it is my mom's birthday, so I have to say a special shout out and happy birthday to my mother.
Former DA, California DA, badass.
Trying not to get us in too much trouble.
Not
Nevada.
Too much trouble. Oh, Nevada.
You're gonna give me.
I'm sorry. I'm
a
sorry.
little more love letters.
Ms. Jolie, Nevada DA. DA. That's just it should be BA. It's never badass.
She is badass.
Yeah. Shout out moms. Shout out moms. You've been to Paris?
I have not been to Paris. I haven't been to Europe. That's my next to do. That's my next to do.
Paris. I've been lucky enough to go to the Louvre, and
of course you have.
I don't even know.
You seem like you've been to Paris with your Lululemons, you bougie bitch. Flying first class, huh?
No, not that trip. That one was
not that trip.
Not that trip. That one was anyway.
Anyway, we're gonna start
at the
Patreon.
Louvre.
We're gonna start a Patreon down at the bottom, and you can understand why. We're trying to make a living off of this, and Ofni has a big living apparently. Trips to the Louvre in first class, bitches.
Listen, the Louvre. I don't understand. I spent 7 hours there, and I barely saw any of it. How do you even do that on one trip to how do you do on one trip there? I don't understand.
See, I wouldn't even know that.
The Seine, one of my best experiences in France. I was on the Seine, and it was dusk, and we were getting ready to reach the Eiffel Tower, and then that thing just started lighting up and flashing. One of the most incredible things. And then all the French people taught me a song. It calls Oh, Champs-Élysées. They're all singing this. Oh, Champs-Élysées. It was awesome. And then I was listening to Kanye's Flashing Lights because that's what was happening on. You got a phone call again, didn't you?
Well, I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Flashing lights. Lights.
It's, and I'm going to get working on our next show also. And we got to get some interviews going. So
yes, so expect John Pay and many, many more.
Also, my first got our first kind of 7-on-7 tournament tomorrow morning. So I've now got football back in the schedule.
Do you go Coach Shane or Coach Wicks?
Coach Wicks. Coach Shane sounds weird, bro.
Yeah, and I've been out at a couple of football practices this week. They call them OTAs, and I'm always surprised when there's a players only practice, but the coaches are on the other side of the fence.
Bro, you trying to win games or not?
I'm trying not to get in trouble right now.
You can see the difference, though,
Yeah,
right?
well,
of like
you know what's cool when players
when
are
it's
out
pressure time.
Well, and when players are out there doing it themselves, that's impressive, man. Can a football team go out without a coach and compete on Saturdays without coaches?
I think a Stanford team could.
Because they're smart guys.
They could call the defense. I mean,
That's what they do.
here's the deal, though. Like, I feel like particularly calling a defense is really, like, there's obviously vast skill to it. And there's lots of different tactics and other things. But it's an art form, you know? I think offense can be a little more like cut and dry, right? Because like things are working, things are not working, right? Like you got a stud running back and a big offensive line. Make use of it. Whereas on defense, the creativity that you kind of need to bring to the table to solve the game day challenges is just a bit different, right?
And I think maybe my question should be two-part, like NFL versus college players. And I think there's no substitute for the experience that coaches bring, right? I mean, these guys are playing college, have been playing football all their lives, but the coaches usually have, especially the head coach, usually have 20 years on those guys, right? Sometimes.
Well, and like
more maybe.
Yes, experience is honestly, obviously,
paramount
in many cases beneficial, but in these instances too, because you know those guys that have been around a long time, they're just thinking of shit that you haven't had time to think of yet. Right.
And they're writing the game plan, right? So they're anticipating things. Well, no, as a player, you know the game plan because you're anticipating things.
Well, and you know, I feel like in today's game, with the amount of passing that goes on, and just the amount of yardage, even good defenses can give up against recently average offenses. Requires kind of a different tact, I think, and a different mindset than what used to be kind of the dominant wave of calling defenses in college and in the NFL. The NFL is not as much affected by it. I think it's always been a little slower to change, but given the new rules and how much friendlier they are to offenses, just because, it's opened up the entire middle of the field, right? You can now throw a tight end post route without getting your tight end killed.
Right. Which is what the Niners are hoping to do in the Super Bowl.
So with the benefit to the offense is like you almost just kind of have to bait the quarterback into a bad decision, right? And if not bait the quarterback, bait the play caller into a bad play call against what you're running at them, right? And because teams and quarterbacks and receivers now, like all people do is go to these like tomorrow, we're going to a 7-on-7. That's all teams do anymore is freaking 7-on-7.
Skelly, it used to be called back
right?
in the day.
Tournaments, just
day
7-on-7 in, day out.
Yeah, I remember those.
That's all that's going on, right? So you're going to give up decent yardage in the pass game in all likelihood just because like they're playing so much pitch and catch, right? That even high school level quarterbacks now can pretty precisely place a football, either front shoulder, back shoulder, right? Like these are no longer expertise level terms, right? These are just kind of like generic learning the basics of playing quarterback, right? And so obviously DBs are working at the same clip alongside of that. Although I do think across football, the emphasis is still offense, right? It's sexier. It seems like it's where kids want to be first, is having the football in their hands, right? I think kind of takes some mentality and some experience to grow into a defensive player. Most people, I don't think, are just like born like Ray Lewis or whatever.
I was.
So
let me stop you right there. As fascinating as all of this is, it's way X and O's for me. X's and O's, and I hope it's not for our audience, because there are going to be some football heads listening right now. But
for sure.
I'm kind of tuning out, to be honest.
All right. That's
fair enough, right?
That's what we need to talk about, like
not just honesty, rigorous
honesty.
Okay.
Well, hey, I was talking to a mutual Stanford friend who's now coaching at a different university, and we need to get him on the pod, because he is a wealth of football knowledge, and he's at a university right now that's cooking. They're doing some exciting things. So
I think I know who you're talking about.
All right. Well, I've already freaking pre-promised
Planted
too
the
much and come up empty. So until I
you know what?
Physically
again,
produce the interview, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. No. Again, we experienced some roadblocks and some challenges, but we're here. And what else do we have?
We'll be coming back at you on Sunday.
Sunday
with some more jams.
Okay. I just heard a really good song called Mariposa by the Peachtree Rascals. So I want to shout that out as another song of the day. And then
again, happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Miss Jolie. And I think that's it for us. For Shane Wicks and Ofni Escalante, Balls Out podcast is out.